Okay, picture this. What if the world's most powerful people, we're talking presidents, tech billionaires, you name it, met in secret every single year to decide our future? Well, that's the question at the very heart of the Bilderberg meetings. For like 70 years now, this super exclusive invitation only conference has been a total magnet for conspiracy theories and wild speculation. So, in this explainer, we're going to try to separate the facts from the fiction and really figure out what's going on behind those closed doors.
So what is it, really? I mean, is it just a responsible forum where Western leaders can have some honest, off-the-record chats? A place where the seeds of global policy are planted? Or is it something a little more sinister? A secret cabal that just bypasses democracy altogether to pull the strings of the entire global economy? That's the big question we're diving into today. Okay, so to really get a handle on all the controversy, we've got to go back. Way back. The story of Bilderberg actually starts in the rubble of World War II, just as a whole new kind of conflict was starting to brew, the Cold War. You see, after the war, the Western alliance was shaky, to say the least. Anti-American feelings were running really high in Europe, and that created a division that the Soviets could totally exploit. So, in response, a group of very influential people came up with a pretty radical solution: a totally private forum where leaders could get on the same page, far away from the public eye. And that idea? It became a reality in 1954 at a hotel in the Netherlands that gave the group its name, the Hotel de Bilderberg. And right at the heart of this whole thing was a really powerful partnership. On one side, you had Joseph Rettinger. He was the political visionary, the strategist, who imagined this confidential space where elites could steer global policy. And on the other side, you had Prince Barnhard of the Netherlands. He was the royal facilitator, the guy who gave the group the prestige and neutral ground it needed to attract prime ministers and CEOs. So you had the visionary and you had the platform. And here's a point that often gets kind of swept under the rug. The group's creation wasn't just some private little get-together. Nope. The director of the CIA at the time, a guy named Walter Bedell Smith, personally approved the whole initiative. And get this, early funding was even funneled through CIA front organizations. So from the very beginning, Bilderberg was tangled up with Western intelligence. The official goal, of course, was to strengthen the Atlantic Alliance against the Soviet Union. All right, so how did that original idea turn into the meeting we know today? And how does it actually work? Well, the entire structure is designed for one thing and one thing only: absolute, total privacy.
And the key to all that privacy is something called the Chatham House Rule. It's actually pretty simple. Anyone who attends is free to use the information they hear, but they can never reveal who said it or where they heard it. So think about it. A prime minister could float a totally radical idea, and a tech CEO could run with it, but the source stays completely anonymous. Now, supporters will tell you this encourages people to be brutally honest, but critics, they say it makes democratic accountability pretty much impossible.
So who's actually in the room? Well, every year, somewhere between 120 and 150 people get that coveted invitation. And the guest list is heavily weighted towards the private sector. We're talking about half the attendees coming from big industry and finance. So you literally have the heads of giant multinational banks and tech companies sitting right next to presidents, intelligence chiefs, and yeah, a few influential academics sprinkled in. And the group's identity is also baked right into its geography. From the very start, there's been this strict 2-to-1 ratio, 2 Europeans for every 1 North American. It was founded as a transatlantic forum, and that's fundamentally what it still is today. Okay, so with that whole structure in mind, what does the group actually claim it's accomplished? Let's take a look at the official story, the mainstream version of its history and its influence. Now, this is the achievement they point to the most. A lot of historians actually credit the 1955 meeting with laying the groundwork for the Treaty of Rome, the founding document of what we now call the European Union. So the idea for a united Europe was basically hatched right here, in private, long before it ever became public policy. The key thing to understand is that Bilderberg doesn't issue commands. It acts more like what they call a gray eminence, sort of an unofficial power behind the throne. The goal is policy harmonization. So by getting all these powerful people to agree on a path forward in private, their actions later on just happen to look coordinated in public. And this is what defenders say creates the illusion of a conspiracy. It's not a secret plot, they argue. It's just a shared way of looking at the world. But yeah, not everyone is buying that nice, neat explanation. So let's shift gears and look at the first layer of really serious criticism, this argument that Bilderberg creates a dangerous democratic deficit. The core of this critique is actually pretty simple. When the leaders we elect are hammering out policy with corporate titans before there's any public debate, democracy starts to look like a performance. I mean, voters might get to choose between candidate A and candidate B, but if both of them have already been brought into the same Bilderberg-approved way of thinking, are we really making a choice at all? And that leads us straight to this so-called king-making theory. Critics point to a pattern that's, well, it's kind of hard to ignore. Check this out. In 1991, a little-known governor from Arkansas named Bill Clinton gets an invite. A year later, he's president. Then, in 1993, a young opposition figure in the UK named Tony Blair attends. Soon after that, he's prime minister. And the same story with Emmanuel Macron. So is it all just a coincidence, or is something else going on? So this leaves us with two totally opposing views, right? The official story is that it's just smart scouting, that the steering committee has a really, really good eye for spotting up-and-coming talent. But the critical view sees it as a career elevator, promising leaders are invited so they can be vetted to make sure they're on the same page as the global elite before they get the green light to rise to the very top. All right, now we're going to venture into the final and by far the most extreme interpretation. This is where the story shifts from just an influential club to an all-powerful shadow government, secretly engineering a new world order. So, according to this theory, the group uses a very specific playbook. It's called Problem Reaction Solution. Step 1, the problem. An elite group secretly creates a crisis, like a war or a recession. Step 2, the reaction. The public gets scared and demands that somebody, anybody, offer a solution. And step 3, the solution. The group offers up the exact pre-planned globalist policy they wanted all along, which of course gives them even more control.
And the specific allegations here are staggering. I mean, theorists claim Bilderberg has done everything from orchestrating the 2003 Iraq War to triggering the 2008 financial crisis. They're accused of forcing out leaders who wouldn't play ball, like Margaret Thatcher, and some theories even link the group to the assassination of JFK. And the fact that one of its founders, Prince Bernhard, had a past in the Nazi Party, well, that's often used as proof of the group's true authoritarian goals.
And look, this is why all of this really matters. These theories don't just stay on the internet. For violent extremists, people like Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, the idea of a shadow hand controlling the government became a justification for real-world terrorism. Believing the system is secretly run by some evil cabal can act as a gateway belief. It can make violence seem like the only logical response. So in the end, we're left with this huge spectrum of possibilities. Is Bilderberg just a pragmatic forum for Western stability? Is it a dangerous club that slowly chips away at democracy? Or is it the secret command center for a shadow world government? The group itself, of course, remains silent, and that leaves the truth somewhere in the shadows between all these views. And you can be sure that as long as they stay secret, this debate is not going away anytime soon.